Welcome everybody to the Brian Piergrossi podcast. That's me, Brian Piergrossi, and we have a very, very, very special guest with us for this episode. We've been trying to, we being me, been trying to get her on for many years. It's been very elusive. We've made repeated phone calls, email requests, text messages, personal conversations. The fans have been begging. The fans have been begging for her to make an appearance. And here she is, Annie Marie.
Hi, everybody.
Welcome to the podcast.
Thank you.
What a joy and honor it is to have you. I feel like we're in like a little bit of a silly mood.
A little bit.
Which is good.
Yep, I'm feeling a little giggly.
Which is great. Well, we're going to talk about relationship.
All right.
We're going to talk about intimacy, relationship, how to... What does it even mean? I was going to say successful relationship, but what does it even mean to have a successful relationship, right? I think that's like one of the first problems is like the mind comes in and like thinks like, whoa, relationship's supposed to be like this, and this is not what's happening. So I'm like really angry and I'm upset. And it's like, it feels like to me, so much what a relationship is like being committed to the process. You know, and what's the process, right? So I feel like for me, there's two things, like being committed to what we could call spiritual growth or the evolution of consciousness, the evolution of our own consciousness. So that we're growing and learning and expanding every day through the relationship. You know, we're becoming better people, if you want to put it simply. And then through the relationship, we're on purpose together to uplift, inspire, and awaken others, right? Those two things. So we're like evolving and growing between each other through the relationship, and then we have a shared purpose to awaken, inspire, with others. Those two things to me. What is a relationship to you?
You know, I just think it's a day by day process. And I think that you kind of nailed it on the head when you said that, you know, I think people can get lost in the mind over what success may be in a relationship. And then place all these like expectations on it. And I'm just learning as life goes on that the less expectation we can have and we can place on each other and on ourselves and on relationship, the more opportunity there is then for spontaneity to happen, miracles to happen in like how you mentioned, there's growth within oneself, and just a little bit more space for whatever needs to kind of unfold in the relating, and not labeling that as negative or bad, but just a part of the process and a part of the journey that the individual or the couple needs to go on in order to shift and change and grow together.
Yeah. It's interesting too of like not getting too rigid about what is a successful relationship or how's it supposed to be. And then like you and I, like, you know, we have like a social media presence together. Sometimes, you know, we're sharing posts and people know that we're in a relationship together. So people have ideas perhaps of like, or judgments or their assessments. You know, we're all doing this kind of to each other. Either we are or we're not. But I guess the question is kind of like how to deal with other people's perceptions of our relationship, right? It's a good question, right?
Right. I mean, the first thing that comes to my mind is just, I don't feel at all attached and identified to what others might perceive. I mean, I guess maybe if someone was, coming at me or saying something that might be different, I might feel identified. But for the most part, I don't feel like I just know better. I know better than to like let that in. And also, I feel like just through the journey of life and like just through being on this path together, like, yeah, it's just not important.
Yeah.
You know?
But it's like, yes, definitely, I definitely feel that way.
Mm-hmm.
And yeah, at the same time, it's like we are on a mission to like inspire people and be an embodiment of love for people and like emanate love and create like a kind of a field of love, of a unified field, a field that's uplifts and inspires and is positive in people's lives. So it feels like that's our intention, that's my intention, and that's what we intend to do every day. And then what people do with it's kind of up to them, right? Like it's kind of like not our business what they do with it. Like they can receive that, or they can not receive it, or they can resist it, or they can resent it, or they can do whatever they want to do. It's not really our business. I think that's so important. I've been kind of a public figure on a certain level for a while, and then you coming together with me have been on the same path, and you just learn. It's the same thing you learn and for anybody, no matter who you are, you just learn on like a little bit of a bigger level. And then if you're some kind of a big Hollywood movie star or something, then you learn on a whole other level. But it's like you do what you're here to do. You say what you're here to say. You move in the direction that you're here to move, and then what other people do with it is up to them, and it's not something to give a lot of attention to.
Sure, yeah. And I think that just generally speaking, like people are going to perceive based on the consciousness that they're in that moment. So yeah. I mean,
but there's kind of like two things, right? There's kind of like oh, I don't like these people, like there's that. But then there's like the one that's more in my consciousness is like the one of like putting people up on a pedestal, and they're so amazing, and they're so he's just like you put someone up and then you tear somebody down, because like you make somebody the whatever, the guru, or the who you idolize, or the savior, and then they're the devil, and they're horrible, and they're evil. And so it's like not getting caught up in either one, right? Not getting caught up in like, oh, everybody thinks we're so great and or everybody thinks we're so terrible. Like it's more like knowing who we really are, in ourselves. And that's what really creates a solid connection in ourselves, and not so much the external thinking realm. That's
right.
Of it.
Right. And I think that an important message that I hope to share, and I know you hope to share as well, is just that just in our humanness, we're all just here, living the best life that we can, but we also, make mistakes. We're human, we're growing, we're evolving, so it's just so important not to, like you said, place people on this pedestal in any way, but we're all equal. We're here and we're growing.
Yeah. So like a successful relationship would be a relationship that is committed to the process of growing and evolving in consciousness. And there is evidence of growing and evolving in consciousness. That seems like that's the answer to the question.
Yeah,
right?
absolutely.
You're committed to growing and evolving in your consciousness. A lot of relationships aren't. They're just trying to have someone make them happy, you know, which of course is never going to work. But you're committed to growing and evolving in your consciousness, and you actually are growing and evolving in your consciousness. And it's like, oh, we're in a successful relationship, which doesn't mean that you are externally sourcing your happiness is externally sourced through someone else, or your fulfillment is externally sourced through someone else, which is a really different way of understanding relationship. And that you're creating your life together, you know, you're creating a life that feels like it's aligned with, and that's probably a really important thing to say, feels like it's aligned with God, feels it's aligned with source, spirit, you know, like it's kind of like, I like to think of sometimes as like a trinity, right? There's you, and there's me, and there's God. And God is like the one directing us, you know, God is like, you know, it's like we're here, and then the source is here, and it's like moving through both of us. And then there's like this masculine feminine polarity that is a force of creation on this planet, you know, and it's fun.
It is fun. It's fun to play in that. Yeah, I like what you said about the Trinity, and I also think that just this like sovereignness in my sovereignty in my own connection with source or creator or soul alignment. So to me, that's each day, like that's my intention, like, and that can come through many different things, you know what I mean? It's just like, just living life. Like, am I connected right now to my source, to my soul? You know, am I identified with my mind? Well, then I'm not connected to soul right now. So it's just moment to moment kind of noticing like where my alignment's at. And to me, that's success. And then then do I show up in that space, you know, when I'm in relation, or when I'm communing with you or communing with friends, and what's the quality of the relationship from that place versus the quality of the relationship from being kind of like identified with like some sort of story or some sort of emotional, which does happen. I would love to touch on like emotional navigation and relationship, because that's important as well. But yeah,
I'm thinking of Lao Tzu. Lao Tzu said, be really whole and all things will come to you. You know, and this is the biggest thing that, you know, I see with relationships is like people who are single and they want to be in a relationship. And first of all, they have so much anger about like past relationships and grudges, and then it's like all these, you know, there's no good men or there's no good women and all this stuff. And it's like, you gotta shift the attention to yourself.
right.
It's like, you know, I might be a little bit more like direct than you and how I communicate these things, but it's like the problem is within you. The problem is not outside of you. So it's like this is where like law of attraction teachings come in, right? It's like get into resonance and alignment in yourself, like you said. And this is like, how do you do that? Well, most of us actually know how to do that. We're not doing it, you know. It's like taking time for self-care and practices to take care of our body, to take care of our mind, to take care of our spirit, take care of ourselves emotionally, you know, to just be in an optimal state. And then if we're in an optimal state every day, if we're single, we will attract an optimal partner for us that's in alignment and resonance with us. And if we're in relationship with someone else, we will either shift that to an optimal relationship, or we will, through the resonance that we're in, we will draw someone to us that's optimal for us, right? So I love that point, because it's like it really starts and ends with ourselves. That's the kind of the great paradox about relationship. Is like, if you want to have a great relationship, be a great person. You'll have a great relationship. If you're not a great person, you won't have a great relationship. I know that can seem like, you know, harsh, but it's just the reality. It's just, I'm not saying it'll happen like immediately, but it will, it has to happen. If you have to, people will resonate back to you the way you're showing up in the world.
That's
and
so true.
you'll find the right person that resonates for you. Now, I will say, in addition to that, sometimes we're not ready for a relationship,
Mm-hmm.
you know, and there can be a lot of different reasons for that. And so you can be like a great person and not be ready for a relationship. But when you're ready, and sometimes we don't know that we're not ready, right? We're like, what's that? You know, there was this unconscious block here about not being ready for intimacy or being afraid of intimacy. So in my case, like, you and I were in a platonic relationship. We were friends when we first met, and I wasn't really ready for like a deep, intimate partnership, you know? And then I became more ready, like something shifted in me. And I was like, well, who's the right person, you know, like this kind of criteria of like who, you know, this kind of who would be, you know, this alignment. And then it was like, oh, it was obvious it was you, you know, and you were like, you know, I already knew you, but there was a shift in me that made me more like ready and available for that. And then as we came together physically, that just deepened more and more. I became like more ready and more available, you know, it's like, you know, so it's like through the process, you deepen your kind of muscles for intimacy, if you will. You know, you deepen your ability to become into intimate relationship with someone else. You can't do it through like thinking about it or talking about it. You know, you have to dive in with somebody, right?
Right. Yep. And also just timing. Timing plays such a big factor on that as
Trusting the
well.
timing.
Yeah.
Yeah.
It'll align when it's meant to.
It will align when it's meant to. Trust the process.
Mm-hmm.
What did you want to say about emotional
Navigation?
That's a cool term. Emotional navigation.
Well, I mean, gosh, there's a lot to say, but so much a part of intimate relating is being okay and comfortable with sitting with and being with some of the deeper emotional realms that naturally come up when we start getting so intimate and so close with someone. It can really bubble up emotions that, you know, are there all along, but are ready to kind of come up and take a look at. And, you know, things like, you know, your beloved will push your buttons and all that. But
me, I never push your buttons.
Oh no,
only sometimes.
Right. But I think one of the tools that's been really helpful, well, there's so many tools. First and foremost, I think it's really important that each person has their own individual process for dealing with emotional turmoil that may arise. And just for me personally, I guess when I'm feeling kind of charged with something, you know, for me, it really helps to move my body because emotion, as we know, can get trapped and kind of stuck in different parts of the body. So if I'm like active and I move, whether that's like just taking a walk outside or stretching my body or, you know, stuff like that, that is really, really helpful. But the tool that I wanted to talk about that we've kind of delved into is the NVC approach. And that's been such a journey. It's been such a learning process to really separate kind of what can happen, but really talk about feelings separately. Like I'm feeling this way, and then just being okay with that you're feeling that I'm feeling that way, and like making space to just speak to that feeling without like launching into a
Blaming
story
someone
about
else.
It. Yeah. So just being all right and being okay with those feelings. And then from there, a real conversation can actually start to ensue.
Yeah. Well, I think that the first point's actually really important too. Of like, there's a saying that you and I have a lot where we say like, I need to move some energy, right?
Yeah.
That's a thing that
Right.
we say, I need to move some energy. So what that
Mm-hmm.
means is like, if we're feeling kind of like tense or kind of like just bottled up, or I don't know, like sluggish, or somehow just a little bit out of alignment, um, a lot of times that's a sign we need to move some energy. The energy's some stuck, right?
Mm-hmm.
So for us,
Yes.
that's like getting into the body. So that's like that. I might go for a walk outside. We might do our tandem stretching. So do some
Mm-hmm.
stretching together. We might go for a hike. Um, we might have some sexual connection. We might have just like some cuddling or some physical intimacy. We might wrestle. Um, so all kinds of things we can do, but it's literally moving energy,
Mm-hmm.
right? And so I think that, you know, we need to be moving energy consistently. We don't want energy getting stuck, energy getting trapped, and a lot of that is moving the body. You know, moving the
Right.
body. Sometimes it's just a change of scenery, like get outside, get fresh air. You know, these are like simple things that like people don't put the connection between the two as helping a relationship, but
Mm.
it's really a huge component
Yeah.
of healthy relationship is like a healthy human, a healthy person, a healthy
Mm-hmm.
body, you know, a healthy
Mm-hmm.
mind creates a healthy relationship. It's the
Mm-hmm.
other person is just a reflection of you. They're nothing else but a reflection of you, right? So it's like, it's really, again, like the most important component of a healthy relationship is personal responsibility in creating that, you know, being that space every moment, you know, within yourself, which ties into NVC has been huge for us. You know, we had challenges in communication when we first got together, kind of understanding each other and kind of feeling where each other's coming from at times. And um, NVC is, for those who don't know, there's a few components that we found really valuable. One is pure observation. That's one we don't actually use as much because it's not always necessary. But a pure
Mm.
observation is like, there's a tree in front of me. That's a pure observation. Or there's a tree that has green leaves and it's, you know, 100 feet tall, or, you know, 100 feet tall might be small for a tree. But anyway, the point is, if I say like, oh, it's a really pretty tree, or it's a good tree, or it's a bad tree, not a pure observation, you know, because then you could say, well, I think it's not a pretty tree. Well, I think it is. And then we're getting caught up in something that's taking us away from what we want to be doing, which the purpose is to feel connected to each other. To me, that's really the
Mm-hmm.
purpose of communication, is just to feel like you see each other, you hear each other, you understand each other, you get each other, and you're in a process of um, moment by moment, really listening to each other, right?
Right.
So the second part is feelings. So really sharing what you're feeling.
Mm-hmm.
So instead of doing that, a lot of times we do everything but that when we're communicating with each other. You know, when people are communicating with each other, they're saying what's wrong with somebody, or what they don't like, or they're complaining, or they're name calling, or, you know, these kind of things. We don't really do that, but that happens in relationships, right? So so if you could just say, I'm feeling sad right now, you know, or I'm feeling upset
I'm
right now.
feeling, yeah.
And then the next component is your feeling, your feelings relate to your needs. Or sometimes we could use the word desires, but in NBC they would say needs. So your feelings relate to your needs. So you're feeling upset, and what is your need? I have a need for a connection, or I have a need for independence. And that's an interesting one, right? Because I think a lot of times I feel like when you and I have had conflicts, one person's feeling a need for a connection, the other person's feeling a need for autonomy. So what do you do in that situation where you have two different needs at the same time that they seem like they're opposing each other, right?
Mm-hmm.
So that's when we get into the fourth element, which is strategy. So there's the pure observation, there's the feeling, feeling sad, I have a need for connection. What is the strategy for you to meet your need? And if it's a relationship, what's the strategy for both people to get their needs met? So what's the strategy to meet the feeling for connection and autonomy, which every relationship has both those needs. In fact, in NVC, they would say, we all have every need. And there's, maybe 50 needs listed on the NVC sheet, at least, probably more. And we all have all those needs. So how do we get all of these needs met? Right. And then you get into the strategy, and our teacher, Steve, would say, like, if you're coming from a place of alignment, the strategy to find out how to meet your needs accesses your creativity, which can actually be a fun, enlivening, conversation of how to meet these needs together, as opposed to, an argument that has suffering and, is really painful.
Yeah. And I think so much about the whole process too is like flexibility and, like you said, creativity, because if you're stuck in that like expectation or rigidity, then it's just
adaptability is another great word.
Doesn't feel good.
Yeah.
Adaptability. Yeah. So yeah, it's been fun to come up with creative strategies that work for both. And those are always shifting and changing.
And sometimes you don't even know right away. Sometimes it's like, well, let's just keep the conversation going. Let's have a part 2 or a part 3 or a part 16, It's like you're just, as long as you want to feel like both people, and that's kind of the essence of NVC, right? Both people care about each other's needs.
Right. That's the biggest part.
And you're trying to find the way, and you're confident that you will find the way. And, however long it takes, unless there's some deadline or something, or there's some urgency, that's different. But otherwise, however long it takes is how long it takes.
Right.
I was inspired. There was a book that I read called In the Absence of the Sacred. And it was a book, I think the guy's name was Jerry Mander, actually. And it was about he spent time with indigenous people in North America. And he talks about how he sat in this meeting with in a circle, the indigenous people, and how the sense of time was totally different. Like, they had no rush. So they'd be like, example would be like, should we cut this tree down? And the basic premise is, if something is so clear that it needs to happen, then everyone will know that it needs to happen and it will happen. If it's not clear, then it's obviously not urgent. So you take as much time as it takes until there's consensus between everybody. And you look at every point and every angle and talk about different aspects. And there's no rush. There's no, it's just different way that indigenous people view time than the Western culture does, where there's this, I have to make it happen, faster is better. Faster is not better. In fact, slower is better in these cultures, So he said there would be this kind of listening, and people would talk for as long as they needed to talk. Sometimes they wouldn't say anything. Sometimes they might talk for an hour, and these people just listen. And then, and until everybody agreed on what to do, they wouldn't do anything. And it may be like a year, until they came to a consensus together on what to do. We all decided we should keep the tree. So they keep the tree, but until they decide what to do, they keep things as they are. So the point I'm bringing up is like, just, I guess, patience, right? Like patience and like listening, being able to listen and be able to hear.
Yeah. Your story about the indigenous culture too is a real testament to like deep presence. Wow.
Deep presence.
That's some deep presence.
Which,
and
is what I'm all about. Like, to me, that's what it all starts with. And that's such a key to relationship. his presence,
Mm-hmm.
100%. In fact, there's this funny story he tells about, there was this old man, and they're in the circle, and this old man is like, has his eyes closed, and he's kind of like this, and the author is like, he's kind of like disgusted with this guy. He's like, this guy doesn't even care. He's just like sleeping. You know, he fell asleep during the meeting. So it gets to the old man, and the old man opens his eyes, and he starts talking, and it's apparent he heard everything every single person was saying, and like he knew every detail. And the guy, he felt like bad inside. He's like, oh, he judged this guy as being asleep, but actually the guy was listening so closely. He had his eyes closed, and he was so attentive, so he could really concentrate on every word, and he had such stillness that he thought the guy was sleeping, you know. Right. But he was awake. And the other thing that he pointed out, which I've definitely noticed in times I've spent time with like indigenous people, is there's a lot more space like between their words. So you might be like, you know, what do you think, Bob? And Bob will just like, you know, there'll be this kind of quiet. You know, it's kind of like feeling into what wants to be shared. And then, you know, then like something comes out that's deeper.
Ooh.
You know, it's almost like you're speaking from your whole body, you know, instead of just this kind of surface. You know, a lot of times we're just the surface of the mind.
From your mind.
Yeah, just these waves of the surface of the mind. We never go into a deeper place of like speaking from this depth of who we really are.
Well, I think that is so key right there. Like that, I think I've heard it, you know, in different practices, people call that like self-referral. But really what it is you're getting so quiet and you're getting so still, and like you're so in tune with yourself that you can actually speak to what is actually alive and what is actually going on, you know, versus like spouting off something really quick or speaking from your mind. And I think, you know, that's really beautiful and authentic, and real vulnerability can come in then. And then that's where people feel connected.
Yeah, vulnerability is such a key to intimacy, right? It's like kind of the gateway.
It's huge. Yeah.
Yeah. Yep. We've also been inspired by Brene Brown, right?
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
Yeah. So vulnerability is like, you know, it's like, I mean, there's not much on a physical level in relationship, you know, for us anyway, but there is a like, oh, if I say this, like maybe, you know, you won't like me anymore, or you won't, you'll get mad, or, you know, so, but then the vulnerability is the gateway. But then if you do share something that's more vulnerable for you, there's the opportunity to go deeper together, to become more intimate. This, I know, something you've been talking a lot with me about, and I'm really one of it as well, is like just recognizing that there's vulnerability in your relationship, and there's times where things arise that are vulnerable, and if you're dedicated to intimacy, then you'll choose to share those things.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. Totally. It's so important. It's the foundation of trust too. I mean, when you can really, you know, share yourself vulnerably, and then your partner really understands and feels that there's a safe place here to do so. And it's just such a huge component. I can't say enough about it, but it's also scary and hard, and takes practice. And
the other important thing is, like, it doesn't mean that, like, I think people have this kind of fairy tale idea that if you share vulnerably, you know, your partner is just going to be like, oh, you know, I love, you know, like have some kind of flowery response, you know, but they could be angry. They could be upset. They could not like, you know, there could be impact in what you're sharing. And that's why it's vulnerable. If you knew what the response would be, it wouldn't be vulnerable. It's vulnerable because you're not sure how it's going to be responded to.
Right.
So like, that's what makes it vulnerable.
Right.
But that's what creates intimacy.
Right. That is what creates intimacy, and that's what creates trust, you know?
And intimacy, I've discovered intimacy, like, you know, working with a lot of clients and obviously in my own life, it's like intimacy is what we long for the most, more than anything. Like that's what everybody
Mm-hmm.
wants the most. You know, like it may seem like they want money or they want cars or houses or whatever, but they actually want intimacy. They actually want
Mm-hmm.
love. Love is, you know, love is what they want. So intimacy is what we long for the most, but it's also what we fear the most. Right. So that's
Mm-hmm.
what makes it such an interesting, this is where all the soap operas and everything come into
Mm-hmm.
being, because it's like we want it, but we fear it, you know, but you have to, if you really do want it, you have to face the fear, you know?
Right. Yeah.
Yeah. And it's
Yeah.
interesting, you know, about, so a couple things come up my consciousness: trust, and then a big subject we love to get into is masculine, feminine. So we'll get into
Mm-hmm.
that as
Mm-hmm.
well. But I think another thing of trust too is like, how do you build trust is also following through on what you say you're going to do, right?
Absolutely. Mm-hmm.
Yeah. Especially important for men, especially important for the masculine.
Yes.
So it's like, yeah. But I also would say things don't always go as you think they're going to go. So it's totally, so because that's another thing that happens is like someone says they're going to do something, or someone says, this is what I think, or this is what I, you know, this is how I see the world.
Mm-hmm.
And they have a change and they're afraid to acknowledge the change because they want to be consistent to what they said before, right?
Right.
So it is possible that, like, you know, I say I'm going to meet you at 6 o'clock, and I get a flat tire, and you know, I notify you and tell you I'll meet you at 7. You know,
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
so it's like we're trust is following what you say you're going to do, or communicating continually um to what's the word, like
What's alive?
what's alive, to create a new strategy or a new plan,
Yeah.
you know. So
I
there's
think
a
it's just constantly in that flow of communication, open communication,
mhm.
with the knowingness that things change, things
Things
shift,
change
things
and
happen.
shift, new
Mm-hmm.
information income comes in, new plan required.
Mm-hmm.
Don't get too rigid.
Right.
Yeah. So masculine, feminine, polarity, it feels like it's, I mean, for us, it's like really important to understand,
Mm-hmm.
right? We talk about it a lot. I think it's important for every relationship, regardless if it's same-sex relationship or same gender or different gender, or whatever's happening as far as gender. There is this play of masculine and feminine that's
Mm-hmm.
happening, and it's really important to be aware of it. Who's in the feminine essence, who's in the masculine essence, how are those two polarities connecting with each other? Are they aligned, and is there creation coming from those two polarities,
Mm-hmm.
or not? Is there
Also,
appreciation
yeah,
between the two?
right. And I think that's again where self-awareness comes in, but also like the polarity, there's going to be a polarity that's more intrinsic for each person. So I, for example, you know, it would be more natural for me to be in the feminine polarity, but there's times when I'm in the masculine polarity, you know, like it might not be the same masculine polarity that you would be in, but it's my own version of masculine. So it's knowing, like, and sometimes that's really called for, you know, it's really called for me to step into masculine energy as well. And the same with you with feminine. I mean, that's where all your brilliant like poetry comes from, you know, and your books and stuff. I believe that a lot of that comes from a feminine like receptivity to receive that what wants to come
Right.
through.
So the feminine is the receptive energy, the masculine is the directive energy.
Mm-hmm.
Um, the feminine is creative.
Yeah.
The masculine creates structure, parameters, organization.
Mm-hmm.
The feminine is the flow. The masculine is the stillness.
Yep. Shiva Shakti.
The feminine is the heart. The masculine is the mind. The feminine is intuitive. The masculine is rational and logical, right? Analytical. And it's easy to kind of get in this thing of like, oh, one is bad, the other's good, but they're both good. Like we actually need both of them, and the integration of both of them. And this is why people who are, this is why men and women are so often drawn to each other and attracted to each other. This is why people of masculine and feminine essence are drawn to each other, because they bring this integration together.
It's like that harmony piece, that balance. It's like physics. It's like the opposite ends of the spectrum.
And it's like you show me things that I otherwise wouldn't be able to see, and I show you things you otherwise wouldn't be able to see.
Right.
So we give each other a wider perspective.
Yep.
Together. It's like synergy. It's like we're in coming together. There's a third element that opens that's more powerful than just each of us individually, that arises between us.
Right. And I think there's something just very human too about just about being able to like be in that, let's say, energy of receptivity, where my nervous system, for example, can relax. And I know that my counterpart in that moment has the other side of the polarity taken care of, like just on a very practical, like human level. Like that feels so good to be able to kind of sink into that, you know, and kind of take care of each other in that way.
Yeah. It's probably really good to well, not probably, it's definitely really good to know which polarity somebody's in.
Yeah.
Because I think conflict in relationship, I'm just seeing how conflict in relationship happens when somebody is in a certain polarity and they're wanting the other person to be in the other polarity, but they're not in it. Right? Like I just had this revelation about this client I'm working with, and he talks about how he likes to cook. He really enjoys cooking. And he talks about how his wife gets really upset with him, gets really triggered by the kitchen being a mess, like while he's cooking. And he's like, well, I really like to, when I cook, I like to have a certain level of chaos. It really kind of, the creativity really goes, it's really happening. And she gets really irritated by this, and he gets hurt because he's like, well, he feels like he's making this meal for her and she doesn't appreciate it. So this whole kind of dynamic happens that creates this tension and conflict between them. And so I'm looking at it and I'm like, well, that's a moment, and maybe it's a rare moment for him where he's actually kind of really going into his feminine energy, and then she's coming in and expecting her man to be in the masculine energy and really have this sense of organization and structure, and and it's not there, and getting agitated, and so maybe if there was a self-awareness to say like, hey, like this is a time for me where I really have to get in this sort of energy, and if you could just like know that and appreciate and understand that, and then I'll be in this other energy,
totally,
after I'm complete.
Right. It seems like a good opportunity to come up with a strategy too.
Strategy, yeah. And he has. So so this it sounds like he had a real breakthrough with that this past week. But but my point is like more like honoring, noticing the energy that somebody's in, right? So your woman could be in a masculine energy, your man could be in a feminine energy. Right. Maybe they're mostly in a masculine energy. Maybe that's mostly why you're connected to them. But to kind of just see where they're at, and there's this old book women are from men are from Mars, women are
Venus.
from Venus, right? Which I read a long time ago, and there are some good things. Probably dated, I'm sure now, but there are some good things in there about just communication, just
Yeah.
understanding. David Data, which we both like David Data too,
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
who's an author, um, just talks about women, or the feminine, maybe better said. The feminine has a style of communication. The masculine has a style of communication,
Mm-hmm.
and it's like important to know who you're talking to, because if you're talking to someone in a masculine essence, you're gonna want to understand that, so you can communicate to them the way they get it, as opposed to someone in the
Yep.
feminine essence.
Yep.
You know, like it's interesting to observe social media. Sometimes I'll observe like women communicate with each other on a thread, like on Facebook,
Mm-hmm.
and it's such a different way than like men would talk to each other on the
Right.
same thread. And
Mm-hmm.
there's been a couple occasions, I've kind of wised up, but there's a couple occasions where like I would come in and like just kind of from a masculine essence, just kind of like, you know, sort of share how it is. And it's not appreciated. I'm like, oh, that's not what the point of this is. This isn't about like, they're not interested in like what the answer is. You're right. They're not interested in like the facts. This is about like
No.
feeling and connection and relation,
Yes.
and stay out of it. That's what I've like learned in observing those dynamics. But it's really
Mm-hmm.
interesting. It's interesting to see how
Mm-hmm.
there's a different kind of communication and understanding. Oh, this is a feminine communication happening. This is a masculine communication that's happening. This is a
Absolutely.
communication that's going to be attempted to happen between masculine and feminine. Right. So there's a
Mm-hmm.
little bit of a translation the community being with. So
Yeah.
it's really helpful it's so helpful for me to like to understand these polarities, and then understand where people are coming from, and a different, and it could be, like I said, it could be and it's really fascinating. You can have a woman coming from masculine essence, like, okay, I'm gonna relate to her like this. Or you could have a man
Mm-hmm.
coming from, like, I have a friend that's super feminine, so when I'm with him, it's like, okay, I'm the masculine, he's the feminine. I that's how we're gonna operate here, you know. So just
Mm-hmm.
those understandings are really really beneficial.
Yes. One thing that I just want to add to that, that it can be really, really imperative actually to check in with someone and ask them if they have the time and the space and ability to be present before actually going into any sort of topic or communication that you want to have. Just really checking in to see where they're at, perhaps even setting a time.
Yeah,
And
that's
just
something we definitely learned, right? Is like
mm-hmm.
just a simple question, like I have
Is
something
this a good
that's,
time for you?
is this a good time for you? There's something that I want to talk to you about. Is this a good time for you?
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, if someone's like on the computer and, hey, I want to tell you about, like, I don't think I love you anymore, like that's not a good time. It's like
Right.
you really want to be be aware of, like, something that I don't know if I invented it, but this term I have, presencing time, which
Mm-hmm.
I think is huge, and I really highly recommend it for any relationship that's important to you, particularly romantic, intimate relationships, is to make time, whatever the rhythm is for you, preferably every day, but whatever the rhythm is, people have different lifestyle situations, but to make time, let's say each day, even if it's 5 minutes, um, to be fully present with each other, and not be distracted by the phone, not be distracted by the television, not be distracted by, radio, not be cooking something, not be multitasking,
Mm-hmm.
just like, I'm looking at you, you're looking at me, you know, it could be something, maybe you're going for a walk where you're not necessarily seeing each other, but something that you're fully present with each other. Um, so important. It's just like, if a relationship, if it's important for you, then make the time for it, right?
Mm-hmm.
Make quality time for it. Quality being more important than quantity,
Yes.
and making distinction between the two, right?
Mm-hmm.
Like, this is presencing time together. This is time where I'm working on a project, you know?
Yes, totally.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
What else seems like it's like valuable advice for relationships?
Hmm. It's a good question. I think we've covered a lot of good stuff. Nothing's
Gratitude.
like gratitude, of
Gratitude.
course. Of course, gratitude.
Yeah, we're not doing it every day now, but we were starting off with gratitudes, like
Mm-hmm.
5 gratitudes or 3 to 5 gratitudes that we
Mm-hmm.
had for our lives. It was for each other, but it was also kind of beyond that. It was like also could include like, where we live or
Mm-hmm.
the nature around us.
Yeah, that's a really sweet way to start the morning.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. And then kind of setting the intentions for the day.
Yep.
Mm-hmm. And just filling into like, what do we want to create together? Like, if anything's possible, what do we want to create?
Mm-hmm. Yeah, and I mean, each day is fresh, each day is new. And can you be in that consciousness, Can you have a free and clear mind and heart, I guess, in each moment? But
Mm-hmm.
that's an important practice. It's not always easy, but it's definitely something to work towards and practice. It
Mm-hmm.
makes a big difference.
Mm-hmm. So, what's it like being in a relationship with me?
Oh my God. Um, well, I think first and foremost, it's a lot of fun. I think about this often, like, we we have a lot of fun together, whether
Yeah.
it's just like listening to music or getting in the car and going for a drive and
I also
just
like,
being.
I don't think like, even you, like, I don't think people get like the level of a comedian that I am.
How
Like,
did I know? How did I know you were going to
like
say that?
most of my day is like actually like, I don't know. It's like kind of like telling jokes, but like, I think even you are like as you've gotten to know me more, like you get okay, we're just having fun, we're just
Mm-hmm.
like playing, we're just like, which obviously is a key to a relationship. You need to have some play and some fun.
Mm-hmm.
But yeah, we have a lot of fun. I think
Mm-hmm.
we're increasingly having fun. And we're getting out into nature a lot too, which has been great this summer.
Yes. Mm-hmm.
Yeah. And things have really
Yeah.
shifted with the pandemic. We were doing um, a lot of workshops together and retreats together and traveling a
Mm-hmm.
lot
Mm-hmm.
and sharing work. We're really passionate about sharing breath work and sharing retreats together and traveling different places and connecting with different communities. And things have really, like they have for a lot of people, they've really kind of just slowed down, and we've kind of gotten into this, we find ourselves just in one place, which has been really nourishing in a lot of ways, kind of just been able to kind of slowly track the change of seasons and really connect deeply
Mm-hmm.
to this place, this incredible, we live in these magical mountains, and connect more deeply with each other in a way too, kind of this more grounded rhythm,
Mm-hmm.
slowing down, being present, yeah, not taking it all too seriously, having a
Right.
sense of fun. But
Sense of
anyway,
fun. Yeah.
I just wanted to elaborate on that point, but please, if you want to continue, share anything.
Oh my God. Okay. I guess, yeah, when I think about our relationship and when I think about just you, um, I like I said, I think about a lot of fun, silliness. I think a lot about nature. Like you said, I think
Yeah.
we do a lot out in nature together.
Yeah.
Um, I think I think a lot about silence.
Yep.
That's an important
True.
component. And
Mm-hmm.
actually, I think that that's where we connect the best anyways.
Mm-hmm.
When I'm silent, internal silence, and you're in that space. I think that's where we meet. And yeah, just, you know, you're very loving, you're very sweet and cuddly, and also, you know, we've been through it. We've been through the fire, we've been through the heat, not to sugarcoat everything. It's like we're in a real relationship and we're learning. And I love, when I think about you two, I think about someone who's going to show up. You're going to show up. And that means a lot. So it's a very strong masculine attribute.
Oh.
Like that steadiness to show up and work through it. So.
True.
Yeah.
Well,
so now I get to ask you the same question.
Yeah, you get to ask me. What's it like to be in a relationship with you? It's hard to like, it's like you're such a part of me now. It's hard to like even like address the question, you know? Like you're just such a big part of me, just such like incredible appreciation for you and your presence in my life and like what we share. And it's great. It's great being in a relationship with you. And yeah, we, like you said, we've had some challenges. We may have more challenges, of course. Like, I think that's a part of relationship, right? And like, it's important to acknowledge that any relationship, anybody that I know that's in a relationship, that's in a relationship for a while, that's committed to a relationship, they're challenged sometimes. And that's not a bad thing. That's where you grow and evolve and expand your consciousness. That's where you become more self-aware. That's where you become more connected to God's source, more aligned, more centered, and more grounded, more wise. You know? So yeah, and you somehow, you're not trying to do it, or it's not like it's like something that takes effort, but somehow just through being in relationship with you, all those things happen for me, right? They continue to happen for me. I become more self-aware and grow and expand and evolve, and just, I think, just, you know, become a better human being, a better man. So it's great. It's something to be deeply grateful for. And there's something about, like, as you deepen relationship together, like just being together becomes enough, you know? Like, we don't even have to like do something grand or something, like, you know, just being together, just simple, right? We talk a lot lately about just the simple things, right? Just going for a walk together at sunset, or we went canoeing the other night. It was really awesome.
Yes, that was awesome.
Yeah, just having dinner together, eating Mother Earth food, eating food from Mother Earth.
Heck yeah.
Yeah. So we made this shift where we were getting most of our food from like Whole Foods and Trader Joe's and all those places, Jeff Bezos, Amazon / Whole Foods. And the pandemic came, and I don't really like wearing masks and all those, like, seem all stressful and all this anxiety about the girls. So like, let's just see if we can try something different. And so then we want to support like local farmers too. So we have this company here that maybe they could become a sponsor for the podcast. There's this company that is all local farms or local farms or local businesses, and they deliver the food to you every week. And it's just been such an amazing shift. Like, to eat local food is so fresh, so vital, so alive. And it feels so good to be supporting these local farmers and local businesses. And we're paying less too. So it's like win-win-win in every way. And we just love eating this food and, you know, feeling connected to the land area. And we're getting our water from the local mountain spring now. So yeah.
Yeah, I feel like my body's never been happier. Like, it's just like absorbing all these nutrients differently than
Mm-hmm.
when we were shopping at like Trader Joe's and Whole Foods or whatever. Just the quality of the food is, I've never experienced this before. Like it made such a difference
Yeah.
in how I feel.
Yeah. Yeah.
Plus, like you said, to support local and all that. It's major bonus.
It's good.
It's good.
It's good.
Mm-hmm.
I think we should touch base on tantra.
Okay.
So people are like, what is tantra? What does it mean? I think for us, it just means, well, it means a couple things. It means transcending any division, right? So it's like sexuality and sensuality and spirituality is interconnected, intertwined, and like there's a dedication to like living from that place where you're living a life that's integrated and really immersed in that energy now, in the moment. So one of the big things about tantra is when people have sex together, even the term having sex is a weird phrase. When you look at it, it's like, what is have sex? It's like, we are sexual beings. But like people have sex and it's like goal directed, it's like, oh, I have to get to this point. And so they're not present with each other, And I think as you become more tantric, you are present in each moment. In each moment, there's no goal. Each moment is fulfilling in itself. Each moment is, each moment with full presence leads to whatever arises next. So that's the energy when you're making love, and the ideal is that's the energy for your whole life. So it's like you're like making love to every moment, essentially. Now, that doesn't mean you can't have a goal. You can have a goal. You can't have a direction. Sometimes we have things that we explore when we're making love together. We have a certain kind of direction in mind. So it doesn't mean you can't have that, but it's not the foundation of your connection. It's kind of like that's almost like just for fun or just for play. There really is no future from this consciousness. It's just, we're being deeply immersed in this moment together.
Yeah.
And entering a unified field together and unifying the polarity of masculine and feminine together and having them intertwined and creating this ecstatic creation together.
Yeah, that's well put.
So much fun.
Yes. For me, Tantra it's so simple. It's just how intimately connected can I be to myself in each moment? How tuned in to my body, mind, spirit, soul am I? And then, I basically what we shared throughout this podcast, like it's the essence of Tantra, like how in touch with myself can I be? And then I bring that in the communion that I'm sharing with my partner, my beloved. And then that's when it gets, and then from there, like it's like this deep listening. So then I'm really tuned into myself. I'm present, and then I'm present with you. I'm listening to you, and then that creates a field, and you're playing in that energy as well. And then from there, like it's fun. Like what can arise from there when you're really present with everything that's going on.
Yeah. My friend Brad talks about, which I love, how you can take sexual energy can arise, or erotic energy can arise, and you can take that energy and he would call it sex as prayer, meaning you can like channel in a certain direction, or you can set an intention, or you can like, because this is like really powerful energy. This is a lot of energy moving through your body. So you get in this space and you can actually, just consciously, intentionally direct it, basically, which is kind of another level of Tantra too. So kind of from you can be in a space where you have kind of unconsciously moving through sexual energy to consciously moving through sexual energy to actually even directing the energy and moving the energy and, manifesting things and creating things. And because it's like, it is the creative energy, right? The second chakra is the creative energy. So it can create babies, but it can also create poetry or music or, a new way of looking at things or a new way of seeing things or a new insight, So to me, that's another really beautiful component of like Tantra consciousness.
Tantric consciousness. Yeah. And it's a sacred energy. And it's also so healing. It's so nurturing and so healing, you know? And I know that there are so many people, and probably people tuning into this or whatever, that agree with that, but there's also a whole other side of it that, you know, sexual energy is not seen as that. And it's something to be kind of suppressed. And it's, I don't know.
It's not seen as spiritual.
It's not seen as sacred and healing, deeply healing and nurturing. And it's so natural. Yeah.
Yeah. And spiritual.
And spiritual. Yeah.
It's all spiritual. It's all, as I always say, infinite reflections of the one and only divine infinite self. So, yeah.
Yeah.
Well, I'm really glad that we made this happen.
Yeah, I am too. Today was the day.
Yeah. You've been like a little shy, but for years. But today was the day we made it happen.
Today was the day. Yeah.
Yeah.
Thanks for bringing me on.
You're welcome. I hope that people have some benefit from hearing a little bit about us and the way we look at things and see things and experience things, and people can ask questions or they can have reflections. We talked about doing a online course related to intimacy and relationships. So maybe that will happen at some point.
Yeah.
The breath work that we do is really powerful in opening up, you know, experientially opening up loves that we're talking about too.
It's so potent. It's the most direct tool that I've found to, you know, access those deeper dimensions of yourself, and also move any sort of, talk about emotional navigation. I can't believe I didn't bring up that tool actually when I was talking about that. But yeah, like emotional navigation, breath work. And then like, once you move through that, then like spirit comes in and all the intuition comes in and the creativity comes in. So powerful.
Well,
we're just so, yeah, we're so, I just want to say that we're so blessed. And like, you know, it's just such a gift to be here and be able to share and be able to like, yeah, just practice things like breath and tantra and embodiment, and just, you know, show up to try to live the best life possible, and hopefully help people along the way.
Yeah. And the key thing that people don't get so often is like, it's like that old saying, like from Gandhi, be the change you want to see in the world, right? Or Man the Mirror, Michael Jackson song. It's like this sense of like, this is how you change the world. Like, change yourself first. This is how you change the world. You are the world is you. So just to make that connection, that when you change yourself, you know, this is not just like mere self-absorption, or like, it's like, no, being self-centered. It's like, this is the primary way that we change the world, not by pointing the finger at everybody else, but by taking responsibility to like live our highest and best life and emanating the energy out every day.
It's so huge.
Everybody we come in contact with, and in our relationship, you know, like if I want to have a better relationship with you, well, the first thing I should do is like make myself better, you know? So that's a really critical understanding, to make that connection, that everything, if you realize everything's interconnected and you realize you have dominion over yourself, then the best way to change the world is to continue to up level yourself, you know, upgrade yourself, increase in self-awareness, increase in wisdom, increase in self-actualization, self-realization.
Absolutely. Yeah. And I mean, if you believe that we're all connected and you believe in oneness, then just simply the simple act of working on yourself and growing yourself, like, you are going to impact the world. Like, I think that sometimes people can put too much pressure on themselves, like, oh, I'm not doing enough, I'm not making this big impact or whatever, you know. But no, it's really just the little things as well. The little things I think can make the greatest impact. And just show up and do our own work and align with our soul, and, you know, navigate our emotions and eat healthy, and right there, like, we're making the change. We're making a difference just in those simple acts.
Yeah, a big something that seems like it's a big move is really just a series of tiny moves that, was the culmination of what people see or what they experience.
Yeah.
So having that consistency every day of doing the little things is where it's at.
Totally.
Yeah.
Groovy.
Yeah. I like being able to look at you too and like just see you in this way.
Yeah.
And
it's sweet.
So sweet. You're so sweet.
You're so sweet.
So sweet. Just love you so much and in love with you so much. And it like deepens more and more every day. And just appreciate you so much and like appreciate all we've shared. We've shared so much and experienced so much. We've traveled to like so many different parts of the world together, experienced so many different things and had different challenges and misunderstandings and like at times our relationship and like, move through it and grown from it and have a lot of fun together, like you said, and play very playful moments together. And I think that we've done a lot of good things for people too. Helped a lot of people, and hopefully we're helping more people right now.
Hopefully, yes.
Yeah, and so it is. Not hopefully, it is the case.
And so it is.
So it is. Okay, love you, baby. Thanks for doing this.
Okay, love you. Thank you.
Thanks you. Thanks everybody.